All right, welcome back, guys. Welcome to the next live in our series. Today we're going to be talking about flow. And so this is kind of the third part of the Fight, Move, Flow series and the fourth live in the full series. We're going to have 8 of these videos total. Today we'll be talking about flow, and Recon John will be hopping on here in just a sec, and we'll get started. What's going on, Seth? Yes.
Hey, Nate.
How's it going?
Nate, I don't see you.
Just looking. How are you?
I'm good. Do you hear me?
Yep. Hear
Okay.
you and see you.
I don't see you.
Again.
Yeah.
Well, we want to try to hop on, or just keep going?
Yes. Yeah, let's
Okay.
try that.
All
Let's
right.
try that. Maybe you can keep it rolling and I'll just hop off and hop back on. If it
Okay.
doesn't work, we'll do it like last time.
Okay.
That'll work.
Sounds good. Mocha. All right. We'll just have him hop on, hop off, hop on. Say hi, Mocha. This is Mocha. She's a Norwegian forest kitty. She's good. She likes climbing trees and the wall. The one behind me. She's a good mover. Oh, kitty. So welcome, guys. Here's John coming back on. Accept. Okay, how about now? Can you see us?
Looking at myself here.
Again. All right.
That's
You want to
okay.
just continue on? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, welcome. Today, again, like I said, we're going to be talking about flow will be the topic, and this is going to be more John's domain. So I'll be going through and asking him some questions, just like he asked me on the fight portion. So if you guys have any questions at any point, just drop them in the chat, and we'll be answering them. Or if you are not watching it live and comment later, that's fine too. You can always message us any questions you got. Cool. All right. So, well, you want to talk about maybe first start with your history of flow and animal flow training?
Yeah, I think it could be a good idea just for people who are tuning in who haven't heard from us before, maybe haven't heard of me, haven't heard of you. And just a quick bio that I'm Jonathan Lang. I am the co-facilitator of Fight, Move, Flow, the Fight, Move, Flow Retreat that we'll be doing here in Reserva Natural Zafra, here in Colombia, about 4 hours, three hours, 3.5, outside of Medellin. That we've done a number of these events and related events at Zafra that we're very excited for all people who come to experience this wonderful event, this wonderful mix of natural movement with combatives, with animal flow and other flow activities, other flow training. And yeah, so I just wanted to start with that. And could you give any bio for yourself, Nate?
Yeah. Well, if you guys want to see the full bio, but in terms of flow in particular, since we're talking about that today, I started early on wrestling, and that after high school wrestling, my last year of high school, and then after that I got into training things like yoga and capoeira and tai chi and qigong, all this stuff kind of self-taught by myself. and then later joined the Capoeira school and did that for about a year. That was really cool. That was a lot of fun. That's a lot of flow training, flow movement. And then at the same time, started parkour training. And in my parkour training, I was very much into the um, creative connecting movements, making a nice smooth and flowy transitions. I was already on Instagram by that point, 10, 12 years ago. And or 10 years ago, I'd say I started on Instagram, but started sharing videos soon after, and actually want to go back. I was actually looking at some of my old stuff. I want to go back and find some of those golden nugget videos and reshare them, resurface them. Um, and one in particular I'm thinking of, which is a game um, I want to introduce to this second Fight Move Flow retreat we're doing, called Add-On. We didn't actually do it at the first Fight Move Flow retreat, but I think it would be a great addition to this next retreat we're doing, for flow training, and really helps you get into the flow and do things you might not do, because it's not just the movements aren't just dictated by you, it's by everyone contributes their own movement and adds on. And so yeah, there's that. And then the other thing I was gonna say, um yeah, so yeah, we'll talk more about that, and we'll get more into flow. But yeah, and then the other obvious flow training, um maybe not so obvious to everybody, but when you get really good at jiu-jitsu, is when you learn how to get into a flow and do flow rolling in jiu-jitsu. So we'll probably talk more about that. But yeah, super excited to be back in July in Colombia. I think this will be my fifth or sixth time back there, right?
Yeah.
And so it'll be my fifth or sixth time there teaching at a retreat. And then John lives there, so he now, so he's there he's been there for a long period of time. So looking forward to that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's always
Okay, well, let's hop
yeah,
into the flow questions. So,
yeah,
let's just start out. Somebody who has no idea of flow training, of animal flow, or any of these things, practices we'll be doing, what can this person hope to get out of the flow portion of the retreat?
yeah. So the first thing would be to explain animal flow. Animal flow is a ground-based movement system based on the patterns of the human neurodevelopmental sequence when we learn to crawl and do different positions and transitions on the ground as a baby. These same patterns are expressed in natural movement when we go out into nature. So they're still a part of our body, still a part of our mind. And in ancestral settings where people sit on the ground a lot and move on the ground a lot, all of these movements are a normal way of life.
Yep.
And what animal flow does is it takes these movements and turns them into a way of expressing our body, expressing ourselves via our body. So the base of animal flow is these neurodevelopmental movements, but then there are also elements of it, of hip hop dancing in it, of yoga, of capoeira, of uh, some elements, you could say, of parkour in it. And the movement system itself is very informed by the fascial system, by the way that all of the different movements and positions and transitions and crawls that we're doing affect the fascia. So the way that we actually take certain positions is designed to stretch, to open, and to contract quickly for power development, the fascial system. It's also very, very good for mobility. It puts our body into all of these optimal positions for mobility in a way that is a lot funner, I would say, than what most mobility practices look like.
Right.
Because it's turning it into it's kind of gamifying it or dancifying it.
Right.
So that's a quite good thing about animal flow. And then also there's the element of the expressive element, the element of going into a sequence or a flow of animal flow. And at first it could be one that's predetermined, but then eventually you learn how to just do what we call free flow. And that's where you're just improvising and letting the movements come out of yourself. And you can always mix in other movements from other disciplines if you'd like, with the base that's given by animal flow. And then that really has a beautiful carryover to people for their movement out of nature, for their movement in situations where they might be in a combative situation, for dance in general, for letting go and just letting it flow. And then that all builds into this idea of a flow state, right? That as you're practicing animal flow, you start to really drop into your body and drop into just feeling and letting the movement move you. So that's all elements of just animal flow by itself. And animal flow will be the base, let's say, of the flow portion of the fight flow. With that said, there's still other ways that we will be practicing flow in addition to the animal flow itself, which is taking some parkour tools or some parkour concepts and integrating them with our natural movement practice. That's one. Another is just the moving out in nature, doing natural movement out in nature tends to induce a flow state itself. And if you don't know what a flow state is, one simple way to describe it is a S.T.E.R state, a S.T.E.R state, which is a state of selflessness, timelessness, effortlessness, and richness. The selflessness is that all this thinking and all of this, I'm thinking and what's going on, all this kind of neuroticism that a lot of people experience, especially modern people, it tends to fade away into the activity itself. That's the selflessness part. The timelessness is that it doesn't feel like there's things in the future that I'm really thinking about, worried about, or that there's things in the past that I'm ruminating on that happened. It really brings us into the present moment. So that's the timelessness. The effortlessness is that when we're doing it, the effortlessness part of how it comes is because we're working at the edge of our capability. So it's not like too easy for us so that it's boring, but we're not pushing it to a point where we're scared, right? So we keep everybody at that kind of that zone, in the zone. One way to describe in the zone is called the zone of proximal development. The zone where they're going to be learning and growing as a person. So that's the effortlessness part, is that they're in the zone. Right? And then the richness is the richness of information. This just beauty of life, of movement, of everything that's going on around you, whether it's in the flow of the animal flows, the ground movement flows, or whether you're flowing out in nature or flowing in a movement game, in a natural movement or parkour game. So,
I like that. So S.T.E.R, S.T.E.R,
and I
selflessness,
got that. Yes.
timelessness,
Selflessness.
effortlessness, richness.
Yes.
I like that.
And I got that idea, that concept from a book called Stealing Fire by Stephen Kotler and Jamie Wheel. For anybody who's interested, pretty good book. And they are the founders of the Flow Genome Project, which is all about the study of flow. And I've gone quite deep into studying all different kinds of materials and trainings with both of them. They've since split off Stephen Kotler is now the Flow Research Collective, and Jamie Wheeler stayed with the Flow Genome Project, but I've taken a lot of trainings with both of them. And so all of this stuff carries back over into peak performance for productivity, for work, for knowledge workers, and also carries over for helping people find more meaning in their life. So, yeah.
No, I like that. That's cool. I've seen that book. I opened it at I think a float tank place, but I haven't read the whole thing. And yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Personally, I find myself in flow states mostly because of my training in jujitsu. So, and yeah, it's very much like that. You're not thinking about anything. Time is not, an object. You're not thinking about time. When you have the skill, then things become effortless, and yeah, it's just very fulfilling and rich. So that makes a lot of sense. I like that. Awesome. So how about for someone who, they're just into strength training, they're just into maybe not even strength training, maybe just bodybuilding, and why would they want to train flow? What could they get out of it?
Yeah, so I'd say first, if the person's goal is to just be a competitive bodybuilder, that's okay, right? If that's their goal, then they can go with that for sure. No judgments on that. I have a different view of movement, maybe, but that's okay. And so let's say somebody is a competitive bodybuilder, just to go to the extreme. Most people, when you're talking about that, and most of them aren't a competitive bodybuilder, but
Right.
let's just go to the competitive bodybuilder example, right? A couple of things. One, now this is being very specific, so we can bring it out from here, but we'll just start here. Competitive bodybuilder. One, that doing, we'll stick with the animal flow example for now. Doing the animal flow will open up their mobility to increase their quality of life. That's the first thing. That's a huge thing. And if they don't know it now, maybe they're 20 something.
Right.
They're gonna know it soon. I promise. I promise. I'm 38. I promise. I promise. Yes. And these days you get a lot of 35-year-olds or 30-year-olds who say they feel old.
I know.
Right?
It's sad.
It's sad. It's very sad. And practicing animal flow is one way to start to help counteract that, right? And so bodybuilding training, inherently in and of itself, not the way that I would go about treating my body. But with that said, people have goals related to that. And so doing animal flow specifically could help somebody who's doing bodybuilding training to have more mobility. This is going to make their body feel more limber, feel more fluid, help them to feel better in their body. And it could also, actually, it could increase their performance for building muscle itself, because the joints will have more range of motion. And if the joints, as long as we're not going into hyper flexibility, hyper mobility, this kind of thing, which I don't know about hyper mobility. I mean, the people talk about that. I just see that as kind of like flexibility, right? Because usually they're not strong in those hyper positions. When people are like putting their elbows, like they're not actually mobile. It's flexible, right? Yeah. So we're not going for that with animal flow or with anything that we'll be doing in fight move flow. That just to make that noted, we're not going for that, but we will increase the range of motion and the range of mobility of your joints within a healthy range for your body, right? And then once you're able to move your joints through a larger range of motion, you'll actually be able to build more muscle. So that's a good thing. That's just a random kind of fact, but it's a good fact to know that if you want to build muscle, having more mobility will actually help you to build more muscle.
Right.
So that's one thing. Another thing is, like, let's say you are a competitive bodybuilder. Those competitive bodybuilders need to do a show. They need to do a posing show on stage, right? And doing something like animal flow could contribute a lot to being able to flow better in the show that they do and the performance that they do and not be so clunky. Being clunky is probably the biggest issue that bodybuilders tend to find in their shows, aside from not being big enough itself, right? Or not being cut enough, defined enough, so on and so forth. So it will make the movement more fluid, less clunky. Now, that's specifically bodybuilder, like pro body, like competitive bodybuilder,
What
right?
if you just
But let's just say
want to be
regular
strong?
person.
Yeah.
Regular person does bodybuilding or does barbell strength training. It goes back to what I was saying. You'll feel better in your body. Maybe you say, okay, well, I started to do barbell lifting some years ago, and it changed my life because now I feel like really rooted into the ground when I walk, and I feel just really strong. And I get that because I've done that and I've gone through that, and that's fantastic. And you don't know how much you still don't know.
Right.
That's what I would say to somebody like that. Because every time I take a friend, I got a bunch of guys into starting strength and barbell strength training back when I lived in New York, like 12, 13 years ago. And when I take them now and I teach them animal flow, I teach them, or more, when I just take them out into nature, they realize how much they actually can do.
Right.
So there's often this, I don't want to diss anybody's practice or anything like that, but there's often a lot of this kind of like false pride kind of competence idea that comes with doing only strength training. Strength training can be good as part of an integrated movement practice, right? But if I'm just doing squat, deadlift, bench, overhead press to the exclusion of all other things, I'm going to be hurting both in my body day to day as my life keeps going on if I'm not doing mobility, and especially when I'm called on to actually perform with my body to do things, right? To do things that are beyond just getting strong in this motion of going up and down, 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 up and down. Life is not just that. First off, it's like that actually. When you actually are moving in nature, most of it's like that, right? There might be some situations where you're picking something up bilaterally like that, but most things are happening contralaterally, ipsilaterally, and you're adapting to environmental demands, to the context. So to take it back a few notches, just to be simple, to explain it in a simple way, doing animal flow will help you to feel better in your body.
Yeah. More longevity.
Yeah.
Kind of like we talked about in the Move Live last week, in terms of, having a full chain of strength versus strong links next to weak ones. If you're
Which
just
is all the injuries.
exactly. So yeah, not just isolating muscles or doing very limited amount of movement, but opening up the ways your body can move and does move builds that stability and strength even better as you become even stronger, like you said. Yeah. Awesome.
It's like if I'm only doing the big four plus pull-ups, let's say, right? The big four being, again, deadlift, squat, bench, overhead press, pull-ups. That's good. I mean, that's better than doing nothing. So I want to start there. That's really good.
Yeah.
And if that's all I do, and that's all I'm doing. Again, week after week, month after month, year after year, and I'm getting really good, and my numbers are going up, and I'm looking, start to look good. You start to look powerful in that way, right? But if that's all I do, there's actually something called neuronal pruning. Have you heard of this concept?
I don't, not specifically, no.
Okay, neuronal pruning is when our brain / body, our nervous system, let's say our cognition, our embodied cognition, our nervous system, make it a little simpler. It starts to get rid of the neural pathways that existed for different possibilities because it's specializing on one thing if I'm only doing one thing.
Right.
So the body and the mind actually start to prune away the neuronal pathways that we're not using if we are doing something with our body that's repetitive and we're doing the same thing again and again.
Right.
So the body gets really good, but only at that very, very specific, non-adaptable thing, and it actually creates fragility in the system, which is the last thing that anybody who's doing barbell strength training wants. You're doing it because you don't want to be fragile at some level, right? You get it that there's more out there than just isolating muscles if you're doing barbell training, right? Or a kettlebell training too. That's kind of another step beyond barbell training, but there's still a lot of limits there. I came into movement that from, I was big in the kettlebell training, and it's good. It's good. It's part of an integrated system, right? But it's a part. So
no, that's awesome. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, just like I've heard similar things, but yeah, I like the way that was explained. When you're grooving these pathways, you get really good at them, but at the expense of losing other pathways.
Yes, if there's not a diversity.
Right. I like that.
And
That's
moving
cool.
out of nature does the opposite.
Yeah, exactly.
Exact opposite, because there's so much complexity and it's changing all the time. Even every time you go do the same river, it's not the same river. Things change. That it actually opens up possibilities, and this is neuroplasticity.
Yep. Awesome. Nice. All right. So what if somebody already trains, yoga, or they train animal flow, or they train capoeira, or some other dance, or some other flow type training?
Yes. Okay, so this is the other side. Exactly. This is the other side from what you just said, right? So we talked about how if somebody's only doing kind of limited bodybuilding type movements, isolated movements, or even slightly more holistic barbell strength movements or kettlebell movements, that it's often creating a more limited body and mind complex. So the joints are becoming less and less mobile. Their ability to actually move through environments goes down, right? And they don't feel good in their body sooner or later. Now, on the other side, if I'm a dancer, if I'm a yoga practitioner, or even if I practice animal flow, which is quite good, there's still holes. This time, where's the holes? When I'll ask you, we have a natural movement certification, right? We get yoga teachers. What do we often see when we get yoga teachers and we ask them to make a jump, for example? What do we often see when they do a landing?
Yeah, just instability, lack of strength is very common. One of my first, and one of my longest running clients, did yoga for 20 plus years before there was a yoga certification. She's already in it and teaching it. And she came to me, is like, I get blown over in the wind. It's like just a lack of strength, lack of stability, and that you see that very clearly in the jumping, like you said, and the lifting and carrying and all that.
Yeah, which leads to
which leads to injury.
Boom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep. Exactly. And so injury leads to injury and leads to pain and
Hmm.
leads to the exact opposite of what they're aiming for. It leads to an inability to
Right.
move as they get older.
Right.
That's what happens if we're only lengthening into our movements and not reacting, not working both sides,
Hmm.
right? So we lose this elasticity in our fascial system.
Hmm.
Our joints become hypermobile, and then when we try to do actual real world things, we hurt ourselves because our joints are able to go places that our neuromuscular fascial system are not able to help or able to control. And then we get hurt, we get injured, right?
Right.
So the retreat itself, so we've got the flow part. This is the animal flow and the other flow practices, right? But then it also has the natural movement component. And what that will do for somebody who is a yoga practitioner or dancer, or even a strict, let's say somebody like a strict animal flow practitioner,
Hmm.
is this will fill in the other elements. For example, animal flow is fantastic. It doesn't have any pulling/climbing movements
Right.
because it's all on a flat floor. It
Right.
doesn't have lifting, carrying. It
Right.
doesn't have throwing, catching. It
Hmm.
doesn't have the jumping too much. It has jumping, but the jumping is all pretty much like on the ground,
Low
right?
level. Yeah.
So there are things that are not there. Is it a great practice? Yes. If you do that only for the rest of your life, will you be better off than, and you do that and you take walks, let's say, for the rest of your life, will you be better off than most people physically? I'd say yeah.
Hmm.
But there are still places you can go. And furthermore, let's say you practice animal flow. What's beautiful if you practice animal flow and then we take you out into nature and start
Right.
to teach you some of these natural movement connections is you realize what your animal flow has already made possible for
Right.
you and something that goes beyond any system, which is just going out and moving in
Right.
nature. You'll see the connection. And then that will give more meaning to your animal flow
Right.
practice when you're back in your home, in your studio, in your gym.
Right.
So, yes.
Yeah, it's cool to see, you take these movements out from the dojo or out from the maloka where we train them into the field, and then when we head out into the river, you see, these are the same exact movements, the
Yeah.
tripod transitions, the crawling, the inverted crawling, the hand crawling, they're all the same thing, just different names. And because if somebody only trains, in the yoga studio, this animal flow movements, and they don't take it out into nature, they might not see that connection, you
Right.
know. So
Right.
it's cool to take it out to see the practical purpose
Application.
of it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and then that carries back over to your animal flow.
Hmm.
One of the best things for my own animal flow practice has been going out into nature, doing natural movement, which is a lot of the same movements, and then I come back and do the animal flow movements, and I have a new level of adaptability and creativity in animal flow. Because now that you can do this stuff, out in nature with like jagged rocks and like slippery surfaces and all of that, when you come back and you're just doing it on a flat floor, it becomes so easy. And this frees up RAM, so to say. It frees up mind space for you to be able to be more creative and improvise more when you're back on a flat
Mm.
floor.
Awesome.
So,
Awesome.
yeah,
All
it's
right.
a kind of mental capacity training,
Yeah,
going out and doing natural movement. So,
exactly. Awesome. Okay. I'm trying to think if I have any other questions for you. So we we already talked about, the pros and cons, the benefits you'll see if you don't and if you do. Um, what else we got? So mean, do you have any other things you want to say on that?
Yeah, well, so we had this question about what if on the last one in the fight, what if I'm a lover, not a fighter? And
Oh,
we
yeah.
went into that and the importance of balance
Right,
and harmony,
right.
right? And it's the same from the other side. What if I'm a dancer? No, but what if I'm a fighter,
Fighter.
not a dancer,
Yeah.
right?
I'm a fighter, not a lover.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So what if I'm a fighter, not a lover? What if I'm a fighter, not a dancer, right? Then same applies. If you're a fighter and not a dancer, or you think you're tough or whatever, that's cool. That's good. It's good to be tough. Better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war.
Right,
And being able to flow will make you move less like a refrigerator.
right. Yeah.
Because
So,
that's what you
yeah,
get when you get these guys who think like that everything is just doing movements in the sagittal plane
right.
and or isolated movements. You
Yeah,
take them and you put them in actual movement situations, and it looks like a refrigerator with legs walking around, right? Like
right,
they're just like this. It's maybe it's not nice, but those kind of guys need to hear that
right.
because that sometimes that's how people who are more on the lover side, we got to build them up.
Yeah,
But sometimes guys who think they're tougher than they are, or think they're, sometimes you got to say, hey man, like you got a long way to go.
yeah.
And so a lot of these kind of powerlifting guys, they move like refrigerators.
Hmm.
Sorry guys, come try it. I
Hmm.
love you. I
Yeah,
love you. I've been here. And come try something different that will take you out of your comfort zone and help you to grow so you can be more of what you actually want to be, which is
right.
powerful. You want to be powerful? Be powerful in multiple planes of motion. Be powerful in real life situations. Be powerful in situations that are going to call you to adapt. That's
Mm,
power.
mm.
So
Yeah,
that would be my answer for them. But specifically for them, if you're on the lover side, I love you. Don't worry about it. That's for the tough guys who need to come and see where they're really at.
right, right. Yeah, and I like that Animal Flow specifically could be that practice that is the gateway to more movement, right? Right? Because
Yeah.
of the structure within it, the clear routine. Like people who are into that mentality of bodybuilding, they go, I'm gonna go to the gym, I'm gonna lift this much for 10 reps, and I'm gonna do it
Right.
this many times, this many reps, this many sets with this
Yes.
much rest. They're
Yes.
very, very that in their
Yes.
practice
Yes.
versus the opposite extreme would just be like no, just complete flow would be like just no reps, no sets, complete intuitive training,
Hmm.
which has a lot of benefits. And for people who are interested, there is research on that type of training.
Yeah.
I know we were talking about that recently. I have one of my clients recently told me about, sent me some research to the benefits of intuitive training versus very structured, rigid training. It's actually
Yes.
more beneficial in the intuitive side. But
Yeah.
instead of making that big leap
If you
from
have a base.
opposite, right? Instead of making
Yeah.
that big leap from one side to the other, animal flow could be that bridge because it
Yeah.
is structured, it is clear, and it's very outlined in
Yes.
reps and in a sequence. So that could be
Yes.
the practice that helps those type of people specifically, for sure.
Exactly. Exactly. Yep.
Awesome.
Yep. And I was, when I first started practicing MoveNat, my MoveNat teacher was also Animal Flow teacher.
Mm.
And his system called MoveOr, this is Oki Alexander, big shout
Yeah.
out to Oki.
Okay.
So his system MoveOr, Movement Origins, combined MoveNat with Animal Flow with developmental psychology / play psychology. Fantastic. I did the certification with him in that, and that actually informs my view of natural movement and movement in general a lot.
Mhm.
Because it integrated MoveNat with Animal Flow, with developmental psychology, and really used MoveNat and Animal Flow to help people develop psychologically. It was
Mm.
fantastic.
I like it.
Yeah. Um, so with that said, when I first started practicing with him, I didn't know about this other stuff, this move or this, he talked about it, but I was just interested in the move nat, you know, being more capable in nature, being more capable in a survival situation, all that. That was what interested me. And he was teaching animal flow too, and he started to integrate little elements of animal flow into the move nat trainings, just to kind of like cross train it a bit. So he would do some animal flow movements when we're doing the ground movement warm ups for MoveNet. Some stuff that is similar to what we do in MoveNet, but a bit more, it's animal flow. Like he would say it's animal flow, and it would be specific movements from there. And I start to see the crossover, the carryover, right? But before that, I was against the idea of animal flow. Like I just wanted to do the MoveNet because I said animal flow, like what is this for like little kids? Is this some kind of gimmick? Like what's this about? I thought it was kind of silly, right? But then as I started to do it and practice it and see the carryover to my other movement practices, it won me over.
Yeah.
And that's why I went and got certified in it, right? Because it's, first off, not everybody's like me. I went to war and I saw that, MoveNet, like that's the kind of training I should have had in the Army before I went to Iraq. Like it made sense to me right away. It might not make sense to everybody who's in the Army, but it made sense to me. It's like, it's the thing.
Right.
You're doing the thing. You're actually doing the thing. You're not doing something that simulates the thing. In the Army, for example, they would have us do lots of pull-ups. That's great. Can you get over the bar? I don't know, because all you do is pull-ups.
Right.
And if I ask you to get over the bar and you're all built like this and you're looking kind of like a refrigerator, you probably can't get over the bar. And that's the only reason we're doing the pull-ups ostensibly in the Army, is to have the strength to pull ourselves up onto a wall in case we're in an urban combat situation. Right? To pull ourselves up and over with all of our gear. So why don't we actually practice that? That's a whole other story, right? But I saw that. I saw MoveNet. I said, this is it. This is great. I love it. Fantastic. I saw animal flow. I said, this is kind of silly. Like, I don't know what this is about. But then I started to practice it, and I liked it, right? And I realized, okay, this is actually just a different path into the same thing. Right? And it's also one thing it's doing that MoveNet doesn't really focus on so much is it's giving this chance for like artistic expression through natural movement. It's really cool. And so from the other side, I think for a lot of people, for the average person, actually I think animal flow will probably be more attractive because maybe they didn't go to war. First off, they probably didn't, right? Probably they're not, they don't really think too much about, the fact that our global systems are incredibly fragile right now, and there could be a massive collapse in the global infrastructure, the supply system, the energy grid, all of this stuff. There could be wars that break out. That's stuff that I do think about because I've experienced that and seen what that looks like. Most people don't, or most people try not to think about it. Fine. Don't want to think about what's real. That's your own deal. That's your own problem, I would say. But that's your problem, right? But something like animal flow gives a beautiful gateway in for people who either are very much on the structured training side, like you said, or for people who are more on the dancer/yoga side. It starts to get them into something that can help them to develop more strength, power, and speed along with their flexibility, and turn their flexibility more into mobility, which means that they can actually have strength and power and speed through those positions and not get hurt while they're doing them.
Right. No, that's perfect. Yeah, I like that. Awesome, man. That was well put.
Thank you,
So,
brother.
so we've talked about fight, we talked about move. Now on this one, we talked all about flow.
Yes.
So where do people sign up? How do we sign up?
Yes. So we've got the Fight Move Flow website, Fight Move Flow. There's a link on there that says retreat.
Hmm.
There's a link in bio
Yep.
on Nate's page. It's still not on my page. I need to get my Instagram act together, you know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's all good.
But uh,
Yeah, so my bio, Nate Amato, and the Fight Move Flow website, fightmoveflow.com. Yeah, just hit the retreat. You'll get all the info on there, all the details, frequently asked questions. I think we're still in the early bird. We're still in the early bird for I think another month or so. So if you want to get
okay.
in on that early bird, definitely check that out. There's some extra bonuses if when you sign up early. Um, so yeah, all that's on the website on the landing page. And yeah, if someone sends you this video, um, or if you heard it from me or if you heard it from John, reach DM us and we'll hook you up with a code. Whoever sent you this video
Yeah.
or however you found out about this, hit us up for a special code. We'll get you a nice discount.
Yes.
And yeah, we have those scholarships. You want to talk about that, John?
Yeah. That there's a 50% scholarship for residents of Colombia and for first responders and for fellow military veterans.
Hmm.
So please reach out to us for that. We're very glad to give that.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that's all veterans, first responders, LEO, EMT, um, anything of that sort. And then you have Colombian citizens, the local community as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, reach out to us for that. Bring a friend deals too. So if you want to travel with a friend, hit us up for that, and we'll hook you guys up. And let us know if you have any questions. Next week live is going to be all about the questions. It's just gonna be a Q&A next week, and we're also gonna get on people who've already signed up. You can see their what they're most looking forward to, why they signed up, and people who attended past Fight Move Flow retreat. So you can hear their perspective on it and see what they thought about it. So tune
Yep.
in next week. We'll put the date out for that one soon. It'll probably be on Saturday though. We'll let you know for sure.
Yep. Fantastic.
Awesome, brother. Another good talk.
Okay. Yeah.
And yeah, looking forward to being there again. It looks beautiful there. You got the nice green jungle. I'm here in the desert and ready to see Colombia again.
Ready to have you.
Awesome, brother. All right, guys. So yeah, tune in next week and we'll have some fun. All right.
Okay. See
See
you
you
soon.
guys.
Peace.
Peace.